August 2024 monthly meeting of the Township of Lawrence Board of Adjustment meeting, August 26th, 2024. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied and a statement certifying the same will be executed. Please all join me in rising to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Santiago, roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Trachtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Goldberg.
Here.
Mr. Ola.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And our son is Santiago here.
Thank you. First order of business for this evening is consideration for the approval of minutes of the April 29th, 2024 meeting.
So move to accept.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Same?
You were absent.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. First agenda item for this evening under public hearings is BA 13-23, SLOC Acquisitions LLC, who is here seeking a continuation, seeking also a special meeting.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. For the record, Joshua Kudre, appearing from the law firm of Sills, Cummins, and Gross on behalf of the applicant. Is that on? Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we previously were before the board. We had agreed that we would work with Ms. Santiago on picking a potential special meeting date. I believe we've reached that date. The application was subsequently carried to this meeting just for scheduling purposes and to announce that special meeting date. So if we could just confirm for the record, I'd appreciate that.
Sonia, we have a date?
Yes, Mr. Ola, we do have Monday, September the 9th for a special meeting for the SLOC application.
Great. So Monday, September 9th in this room, same location, 7 p.m., correct?
Yeah, and just for members of the public, so the SLOC application, which is BA 1423, will be heard on September 9th in this room, starting at 7 p.m. There'll be no further notices from the applicant. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck. Thank you.
Good luck. Have a great evening.
Yeah, let's jump to Saxon.
Housekeeping.
Yeah, the housekeeping announcement, BA 09-24, 34 West Hanover Avenue. Application for John Saxon will not be heard this evening, so that will be continued to another date.
Yes, that will be September 23rd.
September 23rd, 2024. So if there's anyone here in the public who is here for that application, just want to give you notice that that will not be heard tonight.
Yeah, and that will be with new notice.
That is correct.
Yeah.
With
So
new notice.
September 23rd with new notice.
Thank you. First applicant up on the agenda this evening is Donna and Edmund Ladeau, BA-07-24, 7 Mill Road. Applicant is proposing construction of a one-story addition over an existing open porch.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Rich Wenner, Lavery Salvaggi, and Cohen on behalf of the applicant, Donna and Ed. I have Bill Byrne with me, who is our architect and planner, to provide testimony regarding the proposed construction, as well as the criteria and facts in support of the C variance relief, which we need. The property is located in the RA7 zone. As the chair stated, we are proposing to construct a one-story addition. There are existing non-conforming setbacks to the structure. We're going to propose constructing the addition where the deck currently is located. But we do need some variance relief for that project. As I said, Mr. Byrne is my only witness. I can swear him in now.
Yep.
And get going.
Bill, would you stand, please? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Sorry, do you want me to board hearing or Mr. Byrne?
Well, no, I know it's been a while, you've been before the board before, but just briefly, if you give us your professional background, please.
I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed as an architect since 1994. I've appeared before this board a few months ago and other boards in Morris County. Accepted as my first field architect.
And all your licenses, the practice architecture are current and in good standing with the state of New Jersey?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, he's going over the proposed project for the benefit of the board and the members of the public that are here today.
Mr. Burns, you could use that microphone right there on the stand, or, yes, either or.
Okay, I'll take this one.
The wireless, is it on?
The light's on. I think it's on. So what is being proposed by the Ledoux's is to create a main level, a first floor bedroom and bathroom to accommodate them as they age. They are, they've owned this home for many, many years, since the early 1980s. And the house as it exists today is, was built in the 1940s. It includes 3 bedrooms, all of which are on the second floor, accessible by stairway. The main level consists of living room, dining room, kitchen. Not an overly large house, but a nice home in original condition, very well kept. So their goal was to create a bedroom suite for themselves with a first floor bathroom expansion to allow them to stay here, age in place, which is a common term today, and certainly creating a situation that will allow them to stay in their home that they've enjoyed for so many years. We've submitted construction drawings reflecting the work that's being proposed, but for the benefit of tonight's meeting, I created a presentation plan, colorized version of those very same plans, so I'm assuming we would mark that.
Mark that A1, please, and if you would put today's date on it, and then just tell us the title of it, please.
So this would be a presentation plan with colored elevations and a floor plan representing the identical conditions that were proposed on the submitted plans.
And that's one page?
It's a single sheet, correct. So what we see here on the bottom left is the main level plan, and the dark shaded walls represent the proposed addition, which essentially falls within the footprint of an existing wood deck. There was a deck that was added to the property under Mr. Ledoux's, Mrs. Ledoux's ownership back in 1986, I believe. It was done with full permits, and so our proposal essentially creates this bedroom addition atop that existing deck. And we've got a bedroom of a modest size. It's about 12 by 14. We've got a corridor that connects to the remaining portion of the deck that we're going to keep in place. And we do also expand that first floor bathroom that would allow easier access. There's a bathroom there now that just includes a sink and a toilet, but what we're proposing is to add a shower and a little bit more floor space just to make accessibility a little bit more comfortable. With the exception of that work, there's really no other changes to the existing house. What we see here on the top of the sheet is the right side elevation. This would be the elevation viewed from their neighbor. And the house currently stops about here with a first floor porch that's enclosed. And really what we're proposing is to add 16 foot, 11 inches to that wall. So it's not going any closer to the property line. We're just extending it further toward the back, again, above that footprint of the current deck. What we also see on the bottom right is the rear elevation. So this would be the view if we were to look at the back of the house. And you can see here, the width of the addition blends in nicely. It's 15 feet 10 inches from end to end, and it would have a shallow pitched gable roof that would clear the windows on the second floor, so we're not impacting any of those upstairs bedrooms. From a site standpoint, based on the survey that was submitted, the proposed addition, again, falls above that existing deck. So we're essentially taking the current line of the house, which is approximately 6 feet from the property line, building the addition atop that deck and extending it within that footprint. So what we're here for tonight is a side yard setback variance. The requirement would be greater than 6 feet. I believe it's 10. And what we're proposing is a continuation of the pre-existing non-conforming setback.
So, Bill, on that point, we're not encroaching further towards the side yard, we're just running, we're running deeper towards the rear yard.
That is correct, yeah. So what's there today, as far as that side of the house is concerned, would be matched, and we would just extend that further back. So we're not increasing or decreasing that dimension, we're just increasing the height of that current deck, obviously. In all other counts, I believe we're in compliance. We've got a 5-foot setback on the left side, which again is a pre-existing non-conforming condition. We're not changing that. And at the time that that addition was proposed and constructed and approved, completed several years ago, it must have met current zoning at that time at that 5.9 foot dimension. We're okay on coverages, and I don't think there's any other, zoning concerns here other than, like I said, the fact that we're in violation of that side yard setback.
Which again is a pre-existing setback that we're keeping with, we're just running, we're extending the length of the house towards the rear yard.
That's correct.
We're not creating a non-conforming rear yard setback. So.
That's correct. The house currently complies with the rear yard setback. I think obviously what we're proposing is quite a bit further forward than the deepest part of the structure today. But again, I think in both cases we're in compliance. The rear yard setback requirement's 25 feet. I don't have that dimensioned here, but we're probably 50 feet or better to the rear yard, well within that setback requirement. So from a zoning standpoint, I think what we're really requesting here is relief under the C1 hardship guideline, because again, the location of the existing house, the pre-approved deck that exists today sort of indicates that that line has already been established. We are increasing the height of the structure. It's still a 1-story addition. We're still about 12 or 13 feet, but we believe based on the fact that, the size and width of this lot is, and the location of the house is really what's driving this variance. And again, we would consider that to be a hardship. I think there's also some reason to say that we could classify this as a C2 variance, because I think, there's a lot of our practice these days is spent helping families create similar situations like this, whether it be multi-generational housing, which is a large percentage of our business today, or creating situations where people can age in place. They aren't forced to go into a nursing home or seek other type of care. They can stay in a neighborhood. They can stay in a home that they're familiar with. I think there's a lot of benefits to that just from a community standpoint. These folks have lived here for a very, very long time. They take beautiful care of their home, and I think it creates some real, solid neighborhood ties. And so I think from, looking at the negative versus the positive criteria, I think the negative, impact of this addition is minimal. I think it's not really going to be visible. I'm not certain people would even understand or know what was done because it blends so seamlessly. And again, the positive criteria, I think, is substantial. So.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burns from the board or the board professionals? Just want to, I didn't see a review letter. I don't know if one was circulated to Mr. Hanson. So.
No, he basically framed out exactly what I said. The house was built in 1940, predates our zoning ordinance. So you basically have to accept what's there right now. And they're not making it a worse situation. They're maintaining their side yard setbacks and their combined side yard setbacks. So there's 2 variances, side yard and combined side yard.
And the expansion of nonconformity.
And expansion, yeah, front yard is fine, rear yard is fine. It's just the side yards.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple questions. Sure. Just for my own visual clarification. On the top drawing there, on the right, you have 2 double doors. I don't see the double doors on the plan. Am I not seeing that one?
The double doors that you see here are in the background, and those go to this storage area that was added to the house as part of this garage addition. So those 2 doors.
And that belongs to the same property.
It does. So this is really, well in the background and not part of what we're doing today. Yeah. So I know it's a little bit tricky to visualize that.
The same thing with the bottom one. That's not the kitchen door. That's the door to the house.
Correct. The door that we see here on this bottom elevation is essentially this door that comes into the back.
I'm thinking it's the kitchen door, but it's not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members with questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure, so there's an existing basement in this residence?
Yes, there
There's
is.
no plan to extend the basement to go underneath that?
That's correct. What we're proposing will be constructed on a crawl space, so we have access for plumbing and things of that nature, but there's no reason or plans to create a basement space under there.
Okay. And is there any landscaping that is being proposed around and to the rear of the property?
Currently, the Ladus have a very nice garden to the back. I believe it's their vegetable garden. They have some raised beds and things like that. That's going to be retained, and there are some foundation plantings on the side of the house, and I'm certain we would either retain what was there, what was next to the deck, or we would look to enhance that. She has some beautiful gardens, and I'm sure she'll do nice things here as well.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Chair, no one foresees any drainage issues or what have you?
I wouldn't anticipate, much change here. The deck that she has now has a, partially impervious surface, obviously deck's drained, but I wouldn't anticipate any issues here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you have a deck out back, so is the plan to put this where the deck is and not encroach in the backyard anymore?
That's correct. Based on the new survey that we got and the field measurements that we prepared, the line at the back of the addition and the side of the addition fall exactly in line with the present deck. That was the goal here.
So now, is there any plan to add on a deck? Because if you have a deck now and you're using it and then you take it away.
So the deck currently extends along this sideline across the back, and it continues on over to this area here. They currently have a spa, a hot tub in this area that's not been used much. And so their plan is to remove that and rebuild this deck in this infill area. So it's going to be about 11 or 12 foot wide by about 20 foot deep. And they feel that that would be sufficient for their purposes to have a deck and to do, their grilling and their entertaining out there. So we will still have a deck as part of the finished product.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Hanson, do you have any other questions, concerns?
No, straightforward.
Straightforward. At this point of the meeting, I will open up the public portion for anyone that's in attendance that may have questions for this witness. Seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public portion. And now let's leave it open for public comment. So anyone here in the public have any comments in general on the application that they'd like to come forward and present? Hearing none and seeing none, I will close the public portion. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. To me, in my mind, this benefits the community. Benefits the homeowner, benefits the community in general. So I have to support this application.
I will second that. I agree. I think being very mindful of using the current footprint of the property makes this a really easy decision for us, and so I second the motion.
Well, yeah, make the motion.
Thank you. Good roll call. Roll call. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Benoit?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer? I'm sorry, Mr. Trachtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Goldberg?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, we'll have a resolution at the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Next applicant up on the agenda is Schnorr and Rochelle Londa. BA-1024, 58 Lake Valley Road, Morris Township. Applicant is proposing reconstruction of a fire damaged house. Setbacks.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Suvel from the law firm of Prime and Suvel, attorney for the applicant. This application's somewhat interesting from a land use perspective, I think. The application is the result of my client's home being destroyed by a fire about 2 years ago. Since then, they've been renting elsewhere within the municipality, dealing obviously with insurance claims, how to redo their house, but also many members of the family, including the children, were in the home when the fire took place. Fortunately, the children actually acted well beyond their years and alerted the fire department, got out of there. But it's been obviously very traumatic for the family. So we're back here now, and the property is located in the OSG open space zone. So what makes it interesting is that the two lots that abut the utility plant that's behind this property are zoned 3-acre zoning. This property of itself is 19,000 and change square feet. 3 acres is 130,000 square feet. So to build anything on this property based on the setbacks and the lot size would require a variance. You really, even if you were starting from scratch and we weren't reutilizing portions of the existing structure to build something, you would require a variance here. So we do need several setback variances. What I think is interesting, though, from a I'll call it an intensity perspective, is that despite not complying with the setbacks because of the zoning issue, we are compliant with the building coverage and the lot coverage. So in this zone, you're only allowed to have 10% lot coverage maximum, whereas we're proposing 9.6%. And from an impervious perspective, you're allowed 25%. We're at 22.9%. So despite the setback variances, all the coverages are being complied with, which I think is a positive. And what you'll hear from our planner is that the surrounding properties, my client's property and one other lot were put in the OSG zone, but the other properties around it, which are in R15 and R20 zones or R25 zones, my client's proposal would actually comply with those requirements. So from a complementary aspects or a compatibility aspect with the neighborhood, we believe it complies. So we have two witnesses that we plan on calling, Mr. Chairman, our architect and our professional planner. So unless there's any other questions for me, I'd be happy to call our architect first. Okay. Swear him in.
Yeah, would you just raise your right hand, please? Yeah, either microphone is fine. Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. And state your name, please. And spell your last name.
Yep, Frank Troia, Troia. My business address is 267 Pascack Road, Township of Washington. I can state my credentials for you if you'd like.
Please.
So I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey in good standing. I've been a project architect at this firm for the better of 10 years now. I've prepared and designed and sat on applications for many single-family homes throughout the state of New Jersey. I sit on a planning board myself in Wayne, New Jersey. So I'm very familiar with these sort of applications and this type of architectural design.
Would the board accept Ken as an expert in the field of architecture? Great, thank you very much. So Frank, I know I gave a little bit of an opening, but if you could just give an overview of existing conditions, the location of the property, and also some of the practical difficulties with the zoning that encumbers the site.
Of course. So I am not a licensed engineer. I do not plan on doing engineering testimony today. Unfortunately, our civil engineer was not able to make it. So I do have his site plan up here, and I'm just going to be going over general zoning and site stuff. I'll try to answer any questions as they pertain to.
And what you're showing on your easel is what we have in our package, right?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yep,
It's the
there's-
plot plan 1 that's in your packet.
Yes. So located here is our property. You can see on the northern side is Lake Road, and on the western side we have Lake Valley Road, and that is the road that the house fronts on. In the center here is predominantly where the existing structure sits today. Our additions are identified by these shaded areas here with the deck that's hatched in as well. So that's the proposed additions on as far as the footprint goes. Our proposed addition for the half story is located centralized on this building footprint. The current lot, there isn't a lot boundary line that exceeds 150. That is the largest lot line, and that's located here along the southern line that abuts up to the municipal water treatment facility. So with the size of the property, as our attorney mentioned, it is an unbuildable lot. If I were to take the offsets of that RA 130 zone and take 100 feet from the front side, the two frontages and the rear, I would essentially be creating a non-buildable area. Like the setbacks don't even allow for any sort of buildable area on this lot.
Right. So just to clarify, when you say it's not buildable, you mean within the confines of the current setback requirements?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
The not buildable within the confines of the setback requirements of the RA 130 zone. So our additions, as I pointed out, are shaded in gray here. They are predominantly towards the rear of the lot. We tried keeping it towards the rear south portion of the lot to try and keep it as far away from the road as possible, to try and respect the setbacks as much as possible. When designing this, we did use the closest zone to this size property that we just felt was acceptable, and that was the RA 15 zone. And we did kind of design around those parameters of the setbacks, and we do comply with them, all while understanding we were maintaining the existing footprint of this house and trying to work with the existing home as much as we could.
Sorry, and you said RA 15?
RA
You
15,
went with?
correct, yeah, because I believe that's 15,000 square feet minimum lot size. The next one was 25, which is 25,000, so we're 19, and we were closer to RA 15.
And Frank, just to reiterate some of the things I mentioned just on the record, despite those setback variances that we need, the application does comply with building coverage and impervious coverage, correct?
For sure, and yes, I was going to mention that as well. And those are really the only improvements that we're talking about making on this lot. We're not asking to regrade the lot substantially. We're not asking to create this, large impervious area. We're maintaining the existing garages. We're maintaining the existing driveway. The only thing we are redoing as a part of this proposed development is because of the new front covered porch, we are installing new steps and a new walkway to lead to the driveway, but very similar in nature to what was already existing there beforehand. So, aside from that, the only other site improvements we're suggesting to make is just shifting the fences all to be compliant with the zoning ordinances. But aside from that, we are not proposing much disturbance to the current property as it stands today. The proposed addition, the footprint itself is 400 square feet or 399. That was limited by the DEP because we are in a flood zone. So as I get into the plans, I'll just explain. We did elevate the addition slightly, only about 1.5 feet above where the current basement or ground floor level is to comply with that flood zone.
And Frank, that was going to lead to my next question. The application complies with the building height requirement?
Yes, we do comply with the building height requirement for the municipality.
Okay. You want to go into the proposed
Sure.
architectural?
So, I'll get into the pretty picture stuff now. So,
Just identify the sheet. And this was all in the packet as well?
yes.
Okay.
So the sheet I just flipped to, this is the first set of the architectural plans, and this is VA 000. On this sheet, we just have some conceptual renderings, really just to show the improvements aesthetically that we are proposing to make to this house. We are proposing a Tudor style with some modern flair to it, but predominantly stucco exterior, some composite materials, black frame windows. To focus you a little bit on the front facade, so this is what's facing Lake Valley Road. Essentially the bulk of what's below here, this roof line, is what's currently, or what was currently there today. It still is there, but it's fire damage. What we're proposing is this centralized addition, which in conformance with being a habitable attic or a half story, it's mostly confined within the roof line of that second floor. So what we're proposing in our mind wasn't even adding too much to the mass at the rear of the building, and I'll get into it a little bit more in the elevations, but essentially we're asking for this volume here is our two-story addition, so that includes and I'll get into the stories. Our ground floor is considered the first story because everything's a story above grade. So we have no basement here. We have nothing that's subterranean, most likely to do with the wetlands and the flood elevations. So it's a two-story, but more or less a raised ranch. That's the only volume. The only other addition we're proposing to add is this deck along the rear here. It is cladded in masonry, but it's not a solid masonry terrace. It does have openings to it, so it doesn't seem as massy and bulky as a typical masonry terrace would appear. Additionally, it's all compliant with the setbacks that we were going off of, as well as the coverages. The next sheet here is VA 100. This is the existing floor plans. Not much to talk about here, but I just want to bring up the existing house is currently a 4-bedroom home. Has your typical living space. It has 2-car garages. Typical kitchen, living room, very characteristic of homes that were built throughout the 70s and 80s of these raised ranch styles. The next sheet, VA 200. Here I have the first floor plan. So this is our ground floor plan as well as our second floor plan. The addition we're proposing is located at the rear of the home back here. The addition, again, is about 399 square feet, or roughly about 16 feet deep by about 23 feet wide. And that's this portion here that is spelled out. The covered patio, it's roughly about the same dimensions, just on the opposite side of that to extend to the other end of the home. On the first floor, again, our second floor would be over this portion here. We are proposing to bump out the first floor a little bit, but it's not adding to our footprint because it's going to be cantilevered. And that is to get the clients a slightly larger kitchen and living space. And all in all, with all the improvements, we're only adding one extra bedroom. So we're only bumping it up from a 4-bedroom to a 5-bedroom. Very characteristic of many homes that I work on today, and many homes I believe in the area as well. I think our planner can definitely get into that more. But aside from that, the program is pretty standard for a house of today's needs, with a primary suite, bedrooms for kids, a playroom, dining area, kitchen, and an outdoor area to enjoy their property.
I think that pretty much covers it from an architectural perspective.
The next floor, VA 201. Sorry, it's just showing the half level, but you can see we're really not adding much program up there aside from a study office space and a fitness area. Most of that is voided space. That's going to be cathedral ceilings from the floor below. And then finally, the elevations, which here I can show you, we do have a dimension from our average grade to the top of the highest ridge, our new ridge, and it is at 34'7", which is compliant with 35-foot building height. Again, most of the mass we're adding on the front of the structure is centralized on the building, so trying to respect the adjacent property lines, mainly our one neighbor to the east there. And then on the rear, really, this is the mass that we're talking about that we are proposing to this structure right here. Just a 2-story structure with the 1-story open deck that we are proposing. Again, materials, modern Tudor style home. We're going to have some composite siding on there, predominantly stucco. We're going to have some metal roof accents, all stuff to just try and make the home beautiful and fit in with its surrounding context. And then that is my last sheet.
Okay.
Thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can either of you talk a little bit more about the nature of the damage to the house from the fire? Because when I look at what I've seen on Google Maps, and then this is just an absolutely beautiful rendering, by the way. If I ever need to have my house redone, I know who to call.
I give a card.
It looks like completely two different homes. So can you talk a little bit more about the nature of the damage and how much renovation to the existing structure is going to be needed to create this beautiful home?
Sure. I mean, as far as the existing house goes, like you're 100% right. It's a facelift, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. I don't think we still really fully understand how much of the existing structure we can utilize yet. I don't know if a contractor's really been in there yet to evaluate that. We are utilizing the existing foundation to the fullest extent. They're going to have to go through and verify, what stud walls they can use versus which ones they can't. The house, if you drove by it and you're driving by quickly, you probably wouldn't notice it because there's fire damage on the outside, there's boards on the windows, but most of the extensive damage was on the interior of it, which, we didn't even go inside to measure because it was extensive enough where we didn't feel comfortable walking there. So, we want to try and utilize as much as possible, but at the same time, we don't want to compromise on the construction for the improvements the clients are hoping to make. But again, the foundation, 100%, we're reutilizing that. Garages, we're reutilizing that. Where they are located, we're not adding garages. And the additions are solely to that additional space on the rear of the house that we're seeking.
So it's not like you're going to be raising, as best as you can tell,
I'm sorry,
you're not going to raise the current property and then start from scratch.
No, not at all. Yeah, even the first floor, we're keeping where the existing first floor was, so we're not saying we're adding more steps to walk up to that first floor. That's all staying the same.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other board members with questions? I just have one question. in the letter of denial, it was referenced that 3 AC units were, which were sort of facing Lake Road. There's suggestion and recommendation that we move to another location on the property. Was that accommodated for in the
It does not seem like it was accommodated for on this site plan, but we would be more
Yeah,
than
we
happy
can make
to
that
find a
subject-
different location
Yeah,
for
we can
them.
make that subject to your board engineer's approval,
Yeah.
where we put the HVAC units, that's fine.
Yeah, there's no tie to having them there. We can certainly work out another location.
Thank you. Mr. Hanson, any questions?
Just got one question that I brought up in my general summary. I don't know if this would be considered an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming structure because we would leave that up to the building department. If more than 41% is remaining after demolition, then it would be considered new construction, I believe.
Yeah, I would, my note to myself, I saw that, Dave, was to really treat it as it was an expansion. I think they're trying to save it, and if it turns out that they don't save it, then
Then we're
it's
covered.
fine, right?
Right, okay, that was my main concern, was that I didn't know how to classify this, because it is an expansion of the existing footprint, but if it's new construction, it's not an expansion.
Right.
Other than that, moving the air conditioners, we do have rules and regulations that say air conditioners can't be in the front yard, so they gotta get moved around. So
Okay, that's fine.
Certainly, and I
Other than
apologize for that.
I don't have a problem with anything else.
And Dave, the height's okay at 34 feet with the way we measure, 20 feet from the corners, we're good?
Yes,
Okay,
it's just shy of the 35 maximum.
okay.
What we can do, since this is going to require an as-built survey after construction's finished, ask them to recalculate the height.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, at this portion of the meeting, I'll open it up to public questions for this witness. Please come forward, state your name, and address.
Hi, Josh Cagle. And address?
So would you
Yes.
spell your last name?
Sure. Kagel. I meant
G-E-L?
one Gel. Bagel with a K.
Gotcha. Okay, and your address?
That usually gets a joke. 1 Raskin Road. Okay, just one question that you raised, and that's actually why I came. You said something about the fence line. If you're on Lake Valley Road going north, you cannot see to the right, sorry, going across Lake Road because of the fence line. So is that something that you're contemplating, or that you're going to change?
So you're talking about like a site triangle issue?
Yeah, so when you're at the stop sign, if you turn, and just with kids driving and everybody driving that area?
I have no issue, as we said, with the air conditioning units, making sure your engineer is good with the placement of the fence to make sure that there's no sightline issues. I mean, we can work on that. Typically, when you get to an intersection, the fence has to be a little bit lower so you can see.
Yeah.
So we're happy to work with your engineer on that with the board's engineer. Rather.
Yeah, I was about to say, no,
No, happy to work with Mr. Hanson just to make sure that is a proper, within the means and methods conditions. That's fine.
Okay.
As construction is slowing down, they'll have to go for a separate fence permit. And at that time, we can locate
Sure.
where the fence is, if it's going to be changed. You were saying you were going to be moving in the ground, so we'd have to look at it.
Yeah, that's only for the benefit of the applicant too. They have small children and kids, so you don't want,
Yeah, the main fence that we've talked about was really this fence along the rear yard line and pushing that closer to the property line. Again, our intent is everything to be compliant with the borough's ordinances,
You're
with everything we
losing
do.
10 feet behind the fence there.
Yeah.
To the property line.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that was the only concern, is that if
Yeah,
you're going
and-
one way, is you're getting closer to the fence line, so.
Well, here, I mean, this is away from the it's opposite side of the property, so I think the area you're talking about is probably here, because that's what would be, but I know there, I'm sorry, it's hard to see for you.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not what you're pointing at.
You're up here at the intersection, and you're probably pointing.
Exactly, that's the
We're
fence line.
talking about the fence back here that we discussed, moving that closer to that property line. So while it's not part of your concern, I do agree with you, and, obviously we want to make it safe, and we're willing to comply with all the municipal ordinances for sight lines and sight triangles at an intersection.
Other than that, as being a resident of this lovely home, I mean, I think it's certainly understandable to redo it.
Thank you.
Does it?
Any other members of the public with questions for this witness? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll close the public portion.
Okay. Our last witness, Mr. Chairman, is our professional planner, Matthew Flynn.
Hi, Matt. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your, state your name, please, and spell your.
Yeah, Matthew Flynn, Flynn, business address 101 Gibraltar Drive, Morris Plains, New Jersey. My education comes from Rutgers. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my national licensure, which is the AICP license.
And your license is current?
It is.
Board will accept Mr. Flynn? Okay. Matt, just to go through some of the foundational questions, you've been to the site and the surrounding area?
I have.
You reviewed all the plans, heard all the testimony,
Yes.
and you've also analyzed the relevant portions of the zoning ordinance and the master plan?
Yes.
All right, so why don't you give an overview from the zoning perspective, and then we can get into the justifications for the variances.
Sure. So as the board knows, we are in the OSGU, which is the Open Space Governmental Use Zone, which does allow for single-family detached dwellings, so long as they comply with the RA 130 zone, which is a zone that's intended for 3-acre lots, 130,000 square foot lots, whereas our lot is 19,000 square feet, just over that. So we do have to look at those requirements, although I would say that there is a hardship, like our architect mentioned, seeing that if we were to look at a zone that requires for that large of a lot, looking at the setbacks that are prescribed for that size of a lot, we would be left with pretty much no buildable area. So that brings in what I'll get to in a minute, which is the C1 hardship test. The other thing I wanted to just point out by way of background is we are at a corner lot on the corner of Lake Valley Road and Lake Road. It's sort of interesting. Like I said, we are in the USGU zone, which does permit single family, reverting back to that zone that I mentioned. But I will say across Lake Road is the RA 15 zone. I think the architect mentioned that zone as well, being that that might be a more compatible zone to look at in terms of our lot area. And also across Lake Valley Road, the other street that we have frontage on, that's the RA 25 zone. So I actually looked at both of those zones, as well as the zone that's catty corner to us, which is the RA 35 zone. So there's actually a lot of different kind of zoning requirements going on at this particular intersection that I think is probably worth noting. So with that, I think just to jump into the proofs,
Sure.
Like I said, the C1 hardship test, again, the hardship being that if we look at that 3-acre lot requirements, we're looking at setbacks that would render this lot into inutility. And I think that pretty much speaks for itself. The C2 test, which is the balancing test, we look at the benefits of the application outweighing the negatives. We look at the municipal land use law in terms of the benefits. Purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. What I'll talk about is compatibility. The proposed side setback and the proposed rear setback, which are really the setbacks that are changing as a result of this application, are actually compatible with what's required in pretty much all of those zones that I just mentioned. Just to give the board some real numbers here, that RA 15 zone, which requires 15,000 square feet, we would be compliant in terms of both side setbacks, the combined side setbacks, the rear setback. Likewise, the RA 25 zone across the other street, we would also be compliant in terms of all of those setbacks. And I think that really speaks to the fact that this is going to blend in with everything that's happening all around us. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, this is a permitted use in the zone, and I think that this is an appropriate use of the property. Purpose I, desirable visual environment. Again, we saw the highly aesthetic architecture that was just up on the board there. Purpose M, efficient use of land. I think this is really an important point. We comply with both building coverage and impervious coverage for that large lot. So we have 9.6% building coverage, just as an example. We would be allowed 10% in the RA 130 zone. We would be allowed up to up to 20% in the zone across Lake Road, and we would be allowed up to 15% across the other street there in the other zone, whereas again, we're at 9.6%. So this is a relatively small building. We have an undersized lot, and I would say we have a proportionately undersized building. So all of that goes towards the positive criteria, the fact that this is going to be a compatible structure with everything that's happening around us. In terms of the negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone. Again, I would say substantial compliance with the requirements of everything that's going on around us. It's not going to stand out. And I would say the compliance with those proportional requirements, which are the coverage requirements, I think are more important than complying with the setback requirements, which wouldn't change no matter how big or small the lot is. So all said, I just wanted to give the board some real numbers to look at in terms of whether this is an appropriate use of the space, whether the size and the setback measurements are appropriate given the size of our lot. And I think that there are some good proofs on the record at this point that support the application.
And Matt, your comparison with the other zones that are literally surrounding the property, would that go to substantial impairment to the zone plan and the zone ordinance that this proposal would not substantially impair that prong of the negative criterion?
Yes.
So you believe that as a planner that both the C1 criteria for hardship is met and the C2 that the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments are met?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the applicant really only needs to meet one of those tests in order to justify an approval. And I think in this case, the applicant does meet both.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Mr. Hanson?
Nothing.
All right. We'll now open it to the public portion of the meeting. If any people in the public have any questions for this witness, the planner, please come forward. Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public portion.
Thank you.
And anyone have any members of the public comment on this application? It'll now be the time to come forward to state any public general comments that you may have. Hearing none and seeing none, I'll close the public portion.
Okay, that concludes our presentation, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Like I said, it's somewhat of an unusual situation based on the zoning and based on what occurred. I think the applicant put on the proofs for the C1 and C2 test. There were two conditions that I noted that we contemplated during the application, which was moving the HVAC units per the direction of your board engineer and also ensuring that that fence, I guess that's at the intersection, doesn't obstruct any sight lines and is conformance there. So with those two conditions and based on the testimony, I would respectfully request that the board grant the application as proposed. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Early, were there some stipulations in there?
Well, just those two conditions with respect to relocating the HVAC units pursuant to Mr. Hansen's letter, obtaining the fence permit when they install the fence, and keeping it out of sight lines. Let me just take a look. I don't think there's anything else. They will require an as-built survey to recalculate height.
Yes, sure.
When you're
course.
completed. I think that was it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Early.
Excuse me, are we going to do expansion of a non-conforming structure?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, Mr. Chair, based on those conditions and the applicant's expertise, I think that we should approve this this application. I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, Mr. Floyd, thank you. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goldberg.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we'll have that resolution for you for the next meeting.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr. Early.
send
Good to
it
see you.
ahead of time.
The architecture looks beautiful. The architecture work. Oh, thank you. Yeah, drop a card off. Thank you. I think if I look at the old,
Right.
new, I think they don't want to see the old
Next item on the agenda is the application for Christine Walton, BA-11-24, 22 Concord Lane, Again, this proposed construction of a playground area, seeking setback.
Hello. I might not be as fancy as the others that have come here so far. My name's Christine Walton. This is my husband, Chris.
Before we even do that,
sorry.
I'm going to ask you to stand
Oh,
both of
sure.
you and raise your right hand, so they will swear you in. So do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and now we can have names.
Okay, I'm Christine Walton. This is my husband, Chris Walton. We live over just right here on Concord Lane. We bought the house in 2019. I actually grew up in that neighborhood. My parents still live there. My sister and brother-in-law live on Seymour, so all stayed very close. We are seeking a variance to add a play area, an area to put a swing set to our what we thought was our backyard. It turns out we actually have two front yards because while we face Concord, we also back up to Woodland. And so our backup to Woodland is considered a second frontage. And so because of that, the play area would not be within the setbacks that are required. The play area would be 20 by 25. Run-of-the-mill swing set. You bought it at Costco. Kind of 2 levels up, a couple of slides, 3 swing areas. We have a 2-year-old daughter who only wants to be outside all the time. And so we are hoping to put it kind of in the back corner of the yard. I did provide some photos of the backyard that I believe you have, but I also printed out a couple copies that I can give to each of you, or that you guys can share. This is the whole yard.
Thank you.
So these all the same?
These are all the same, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just take one of them.
Okay.
And just for the record, we're going to mark this as A1. Today is,
That's just the whole yard photo. The backyard. The backyard, yes.
okay, so.
The backyard. Yeah,
So A1 is a picture of your rear yard or backyard
yes.
grassed area with an existing fence.
That's right, yes. And so it is fenced on either side. And we would want to put the play area kind of where that corner is so that we can still retain, a portion of the rest of the yard for other. So it would be in that back section where the corner is about 3 feet, or I guess probably a bit closer because it's 3 feet from the property line. So maybe about 2 feet from the fence. So the back fence there is Woodland and the side fence is the corner lot on Concord and Crestview. The fence is probably about 6.5 feet tall. So I'll pause maybe on the swing set portion because then we have a second portion of our variance application.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So I'm looking at that photo, I see some foliage back there.
Yes.
Are they trees, bushes, and do they go through the length of your backyard, which actually is your front yard on Woodland?
They do. So there is also an easement between, there's a fence on our side and the next yard also has a fence and there's an easement in between because there's the gas lines there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is some kind of brush there that's technically on our neighbor's property. And then there are kind of bushes and trees on Woodland I guess it's an easement there as well behind our fence.
Okay, so there's foliage between the back of your property
Yeah,
and then
that's
Woodland
right.
Avenue.
This photo was taken just the other day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, all that you see there behind the fence,
Mhm.
where the big pine tree is, that's right away for Woodland.
For Woodland. Got it.
And just to clarify, there is another chain link fence behind that fence.
That's right.
But that chain link fence that's behind that fence that comes to the corner there on Woodland is your neighbor's fence.
So our neighbors have both, I think the chain, there's a chain link. They also have a wood fence that is on their yard. And then there's also a chain link. This is our fence. But then you can't see it in this photo, but there's another fence on the other side of those bushes.
Got it.
That's our neighbor's, also same height wooden fence.
Mhm. Okay.
And theirs also goes along. Yeah.
So that's their fence, and that's this person's.
I thought I had seen another there's a chain link fence here as well.
If you're looking at the survey.
Right.
Yeah, on the survey,
There is a chain link.
Looking
There
at that
is-
back left corner.
Yes, there
Shows
is a
the
chain
fence.
link fence there. That's not the fence I was referring to, that's our neighbors. I was talking about
That
the
is
wooden
your
fence.
That chain link fence is on your property. There's two fences, but I went to the site.
Yeah, I think it's, I honestly, I don't know whose fence the chain link fence is. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I kind of thought it was the township, if I'm being honest, because it extends like all along
When I saw it, it was a
other
weird
property
sentence.
lines, yeah.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the intersection.
And it goes down the
Town
corners on the other side.
Town doesn't own, had to
Okay.
be the developer installed that,
Yeah.
that, put that
Got
row of
it.
houses in.
Okay,
Yeah, you can't even see it from our property.
Yeah.
You can't even see it.
other fence, yeah. I've only found it going to retrieve the dog's toys over the fence.
And you believe that your stockade fence is about 6 feet high?
I think it's about 6.5 feet high. We have to stand on the bottom rung to be able to see over the, I'm 5'9".
Okay.
So that's the first portion. The second portion of our variance request is to consider 2 sheds that have been on the property since we purchased it. So again, we bought the property in 2019. Both of the sheds are there. When we bought the property, we were told as kind of a condition for our certificate of continued occupancy that we had to move the 1 shed off the property line because it was too close to the property line. You'll see in the photo that's called sheds, that we did at the time move that shed as far as we could, but there's a very large tree that prevented it from being moved any further. And at the time, we did have someone come inspect it, and they signed off that it had been sufficiently moved, and gave us our CCO. We have been living there.
Can you put the sheds up, please?
So just while we're waiting for the picture to come up, your testimony is if we're looking at the survey, there's the 2 sheds.
Yes.
The shed closest to the right property line, you did move.
That's right. We moved it as far as
close
we
you can
could.
get to
Yeah.
that tree
We
that's
had
in the
a landscaper come and pick it up and place it back
The
down.
intent of the photos, it looks from the survey, it looks like you could just move it over as much as you
Right.
want, but there's obviously a large tree
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
what they did is they actually raised the shed up a little
Yeah.
bit and moved it onto actually
The
the
roof,
structure of that tree to get it as close to that as they possibly could.
So the one that's got the closed doors is the one that they were trying to move
That's
over?
right, yeah.
How far is that from the property line?
So according to the survey, I believe it's about 3 feet. It should be the survey, it should be on the survey. I think you have multiple surveys. One has, one's our original survey, which did not have it. The second survey that should be dated 2024 should have the dimensions. I believe it's, I have it here. It shows it to be, I think it's about 3 feet.
It scales 3 feet,
And what is the ruling?
3 feet.
Or
5 feet's required.
5 feet,
5
yeah.
feet's required. Yeah, they're under 100 square feet, so 5 feet's required.
Yeah, and the other part is you're not allowed two sheds.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
They were existing sheds.
Yeah.
Understand, but
Yeah.
were they permitted to have 2 sheds? Like, was there a
Uh,
variance
I
originally?
only found paperwork for 1 shed. Doesn't say the other shed didn't have paperwork,
Right.
but I don't have an answer for why there's 2 sheds. I tried doing a paper trail on this and I couldn't.
Okay. So what all that means is the town doesn't have a record of a prior variance to
Right.
allow it, and we recognize it wasn't you, that
Yeah.
it was there when you bought it. So tonight, if the board agrees,
Yes.
you'll have
Yes,
paperwork.
understood.
that'll
That's
say
why
the
Mr.
second
Hanson
shed.
suggested we
Right.
add the second shed to the variance,
Right.
yeah,
Right, and it looks like you couldn't put 1 large shed without taking down the tree.
correct.
And ideally, we'd not like not to take that because it provides quite a bit of shade.
Okay.
We would not want you to.
A lot of trees have been
presume so,
taken in our
but-
neighborhood, yeah.
Is that completed?
Yes, that's, yes.
Sorry, there's one other thing in Dave's report, though, about the yard drain.
Oh, yes.
On the submitted plan that you have dated, it was received July 8th.
Yes.
Was probably the submittal for this meeting. The drain is now located on their property and will approve a pipe going to the catch basin as a road opening permit.
Okay.
So it was on the other side of the fence with the water draining under the fence to the inlet. It's now on their property, so we're okay with it.
Okay.
Board members, any questions? Yeah, Applicant?
Just to be clear, the two sheds, when you purchased the property in 2019, both of them were there at that time.
That's correct.
But we didn't have any records of
Right.
either one of them.
We have zoning approval for one shed.
Mhm.
However, back when they purchased the house, the CCO inspector was only looking at the inside of the house. Now they inspect the outside of the house. So
Got it.
they inspect the yard. And that's where it came up with two
Two
sheds.
sheds.
Did the original variance permit 3 feet?
There was no original variance.
There was
a variance for the one shed.
It was just one shed. And I'm guessing it was the left shed on the picture.
But Dave, just to clarify that, not by variance, just by zoning permit.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Board members, any other questions? Mr. Hanson?
No, I'm good.
This point, I open the public portion. If anyone in the public has any comments, questions for the applicant, please come forward. Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close the public portion. I'll open it up to public comments now. If anyone has any comments on the application, please come forward.
Hello, I am Joshua O'Neill, O''Neill from 24 Seymour Drive. Hopefully I can, Mr. Chairman, just give some background here since I see no one else here. And unfortunately,
Mr. O'Neill, I'm going to ask you
Yes.
to raise your hand since this is comments, we're going to swear you in.
Okay.
So do you solemnly swear that any testimony or statements you'll make to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. As Christine said, she grew up here. They lived in the city. They looked to move back here in 2019. The house that they ended up purchasing honestly had a lack of disclosures up front. It took them many, many more months to purchase the home than any other one that I've heard in recent times. The previous homeowner likely didn't pull permits for many of the things because I know that during the CO and CCO process, they came across fire blocking in the basement that needed to be done, a whole house generator that needed to be moved to a new location, sheds that they moved. I think there was an exhaust hole of some sort in the garage. So they spent thousands and thousands of dollars during an already expensive part of the closing process to mitigate those issues. And since then, they have invested a significant amount of money improving the house. They've put a small addition on. They've improved the flow of the interior of the home and various other things. So they've invested to stay here. They're looking to improve the backyard for their daughter, my niece, and their growing family, hopefully. So I hope that you see what they've gone through already to improve based off of your prior recommendations or the town's prior recommendations to bring the house and property up to snuff, if you will, and to improve it from that point forward. And that was it. Thank you.
With that, I'll close the public portion. Comments? Board members, thoughts on the application?
Mr. Chair, It's a slam dunk for me. I mean, they want a playground. Who are we to say a kid can't have a playground? It's just a shame. You know, if it was any other property, it probably would have been an issue, but because it's on Woodland and the other, that's an issue. And the sheds is beautiful. You can't do anything more with that. I think you've done what you needed to do, you could do. And as a result of that, I strongly recommend that we approve this application.
I'll
So moved.
second that motion.
Thank you. Mr. Santiago, roll call?
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Goldberg.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay,
Thank
we will
you.
have that resolution for you at the next meeting.
Okay, do we
Okay.
have to attend the meeting?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome to.
Yeah. Now that I know how it works.
If you really have nothing else to
Yeah.
do, sure.
We have a 2-year-old. Something to do.
Good luck.
Right down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Well, it could be an evening thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Good luck.
Good night.
Next item up on the agenda is other matters. Looks like we have one issue or one line item on the agenda regarding the Mount Campbell track. Mr. Allen?
So, Mr. Chairman, we have a letter from Mr. Inglesino's firm, maybe from him, that's just, requesting a one-year extension of the site plan approval that was granted by this board for SK Mount Campbell Associates. If you recall, that was the one that really provides driveway access to the property in Harding. Under the municipal land use law, I can tell you the board is actually required to grant, it does say shall grant an extension if you're satisfied that the developer has been prevented from moving forward due to other approvals that they haven't obtained and that they have been trying to obtain those approvals. And in his letter, he goes into pretty good detail about what those other approvals are and the status and how they've been trying. And so my recommendation would be to approve the one-year extension.
I'll make that motion that we approve the one-year extension.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Santiago, roll call. No roll call necessary? No. Motion.
Just
All in
by
favor?
acclamation. Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
I should
opposed?
just,
We will do this by resolution, so.
Yes.
I should just let the board know, we've worked with Bowler Engineering on and off now for about the last 4 months. Plans are almost there. Joe Fishinger, our traffic expert, is working with Brad Bowler personally to just finalize the location of a couple signs that he thinks are in conflict. So we're almost there for signed and sealed plans for signature.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. There was a line item on here for public comments. Seeing no members of the public in attendance, I will move on to adjourn the meeting.
Well, I want to let you know, Mr. Chair, that after 20 years, I think you did a yeoman's job as chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Williams.
3 applications in 1 hour, I tell you.
Well,
You should be commended.
lessons learned, best practices, build efficiencies. Thank you for, thank you for your comments, I appreciate it. That motion to adjourn?
So moved.